someone who had to shave his own head, I don't think I have to explain to you how deeply I understand the world we live in and all the judgment that surrounds us. If you often feel ashamed of the mistakes you make in English, I've been there. And let's not even talk about the toxic marketing that you probably see every day from some English teachers. Stop saying very, it's too basic. Do you want to sound like a native speaker? Use idioms. Speak faster. Can you pronounce these super hard words? Like, why would you make English look even more difficult than it already is? Isn't it a teacher's or a coach's job to help you and make it easier for you to learn it? And as I'd love to see a world and build a world with you that is less judgmental, more understanding, more compassionate, more accepting, where people can communicate with each other without any stigma on their accent or the mistakes that they make, I created this video for you. I used to be this perfect student throughout school for 13 years who did all his homework, prepared for all the tests, passed every exam possible, but I was so scared of making mistakes and messing up a conversation because I didn't communicate perfectly or because I didn't understand the other person perfectly. I used to want to control everything in a conversation, and the more people joined, the more worried I was because I knew the less control I have. I wanted to control what I'm saying in every single moment until I realized something that transformed my entire approach and helped me gain confidence and fluency very quickly. That the only thing I can control is myself. Feeling ashamed of our mistakes is often connected to this belief that I'm not good enough or my English is not good enough. But let me talk about this to you later. Let me welcome you or send you a welcome back if you're a regular visitor. My name is Chubby. I'm an English fluency learning and language anxiety coach, and this is a channel for English learners who want to learn how to make vocabulary more memorable and how to communicate in English more comfortably, conveniently, more freely with the help of listening and spoken interaction. So if these are topics you're interested in, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I upload weekly short or long form videos, sometimes daily short form videos too, so I can help you understand how fluency works, what skills you need to build up so you could walk into any conversation confidently. I often hear this from students coming to me for help. I'm not going to speak English in front of others because I'm ashamed of making mistakes. I'm ashamed of not understanding what my speaking partners say, or just simply I'm ashamed of my horrible accent. And if you can relate to this just a bit, is this the way you think you thought before the first time you started walking? Would any kid ever learn how to walk confidently? Did you learn how to walk confidently because you were too scared of walking and then tripping up or falling in front of others and then embarrassing yourself? Then why would you have to feel ashamed of the mistakes you make in the second language that you're learning? We're all humans, and we tend to think that we're logical creatures, but in fact we make most of our decisions based on how we feel, and we often don't do things like speaking English in front of others because we are scared of being judged, we're scared of being criticized. As a content creator, you don't have to tell me how uncomfortable that is. The only way we adults learn any kind of skill, including communicating in English effectively, is by doing it. And if you want any other proof, just look at how consuming more grammar and vocabulary on social media, in videos, writing more example sentences, or using more apps have helped you improve your English fluency. Now imagine what would happen to your English fluency and your confidence if you slowly started to shift away from feeling ashamed of the mistakes you make in English. I'm sharing this and all the tips that help me and my students to help you overcome feeling ashamed of the mistakes you make in English. Because shame is all around us. Everyone feels ashamed for something, but we don't talk about this, and even the mentioning of the word shame makes us feel a bit uncomfortable. When in reality, when you look at yourself as someone who's first language isn't English, and chances are you're not spending too much time in an English-speaking environment if you recognize that adults learn totally differently from the way kids learn English or any other languages. And if you can look at your own language learning journey with empathy, you will see how your fluency and your confidence can take an upturn very soon, very quickly. I used to be made fun of, even bullied in school for being too girly, being too emotional for a guy. In Hungary, which is part of Eastern Europe, there's a really strong sense of what you're supposed to be as a man. Always strong, playing with cars, fighting, climbing trees, and I never did all these things. And then in university, when I was starting to enjoy my life and be myself, people kept thinking I'm crazy. I felt so ashamed of who I am. I kept looking for people who think the same way as I did, and I just felt so alone. And as a language learner as well, I talk about this more in this video, but I kept telling myself, if I can't speak perfectly, I'm not going to have any conversations at all. But you see, this is not what we do when we are learning our first language. If you look at a baby and you watch them learning to communicate, you will see that they will do their best to pronounce words and expressions, that they will do everything they can to communicate, and they make mistakes, and they are never scared of making mistakes. They will probably 9 times out of 10, what they say is gonna be full of mistakes, and they won't be able to communicate effectively because they are learning, but 1 out of 10 is gonna be correct. When they get the feedback from their surroundings, their parents, their family, they know that all they need to do is just to keep repeating that. And the more they do it, the more they fail, but also the number of times they can say something that they could use to communicate more effectively is gonna be higher and higher. I'm inviting you to practice the same approach if you're ashamed of the mistakes you make in English. And don't get me wrong, we are all ashamed of something at some point. We are all ashamed of some mistakes we make or words we mispronounce. We are all ashamed of being different from others because this is what society makes us feel or think. We keep looking, we keep thinking that we are the only ones suffering from that shame. But if this helps you and relieves you, this is something that really helped me understand human emotions, you're not alone. I feel ashamed sometimes, your neighbor feels ashamed sometimes, everyone feels ashamed at some point. The only difference is we don't talk about it in our culture. We built up a culture that is really disconnected from the emotions we have. And learning to speak English fluently as an adult is an emotional journey. Are you still surprised why so many people struggle with becoming fluent in English? I talk about the emotional side of learning English in this video and all over my channel if you're interested. This is something we talk a lot about inside my program, the Proficiency Fortress, where on our coaching calls we talk a lot about how my students can learn to overcome some of their difficulties by learning to manage their emotions so they can make faster progress and they can reach fluency so much easier. I really love what Brené Brown, I don't know if you know her, she's a researcher on vulnerability and shame, says about shame.
And so I want to walk you in to shame. Jungian analysts call shame the swampland of the soul. And we're going to walk in, and the purpose is not to walk in and, construct a home and live there. It is to put on some galoshes and walk through and find our way around.
Your job is always to find ways to respond to feeling ashamed of the mistakes you make in English. How can you find ways to stop feeling scared of speaking in front of others and practice having conversations, which is the only way for us to learn how to communicate in English more effectively. For example, do you walk around judging little kids learning their first language, saying things like, well, you confuse yesterday with tomorrow, so you must be at elementary level, or things like, well, you said goad and the past of go is went, so you must be a horrible communicator. If you don't do this to kids learning their first language, why would you do this to yourself when you're learning a second language. Your English is good enough, no matter what. And if you want some further motivation on this, watch this video where I talk about how you could learn to be okay with the mistakes you make. And you might not believe me when I'm saying this right now, but when you start focusing on shifting your attention to even the tiniest, smallest evidence that your English is good enough, that you can communicate in English, you'll see how fast your confidence will grow. Confidence in speaking English isn't everything is going to be the way I expect it to be in a conversation. Confidence is, I'm not going to feel ashamed of the mistakes I make in English. I'm gonna be fine no matter what happens in the conversation. And if it's vocabulary that you're worried about not having enough to communicate effectively, watch this video where I'll be sharing with you some really practical tips on how to review and build a strong foundation of vocabulary. And here's another one you might want to watch if you want to find out how doubling down on listening can actually help you sound more natural and more fluent. What's going to happen if you keep feeling ashamed of the mistakes you make in English, even after watching this video? You're probably going to waste a lot of your precious energy worrying, overthinking about any situation in which you can't avoid speaking English in front of others and not seeing much progress with your English fluency either. Now imagine what would happen to your English fluency and your confidence if you slowly started to shift away from feeling ashamed of the mistakes you make in English. Practice self-compassion and accept your English just the way it is right now. Go through the fear of speaking English in front of others so you could get more comfortable with it and get all the constructive feedback you need so you could learn from all those mistakes that you're making. And if you're choosing the second approach, let me share with you the ebook that I wrote for you, where I'll be sharing all my inner battles with confidence as a man, learning the international language and accepting how hiding my mistakes or being scared of making mistakes isn't going to work if I really want to build up my skills of communicating in English effectively. Download this ebook using the first link you will see in the description. And if you'd like to find opportunities where you could get messy, get accepted, and feel safe enough to communicate with people as a way to practice your fluency, I'm building this online community called Build Your Fluency. Well, you will be more than welcome to join and share with us whatever you have to share with us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to connect with you in that community as well. Join using the link in the description as well. Believe me when I say that shifting your attention every day to my English is good enough, looking for evidence, is going to transform your confidence. What is your biggest takeaway from this video? What is something that you're going to be braver, more courageous about the next time you have to use English? Let me know in the comments below. Go through the fear of speaking English in front of others so you could get more comfortable with it and get all the constructive feedback you need so you could learn from all those mistakes that you're making.